Welcome, everyone, and I really appreciate everyone joining us to have this discussion about declawing. It's a hot topic, and it's nice to kind of get it out in the open and chat about it. So, we'll talk about what declawing is and some alternatives, how we can live with cats who have claws successfully and happily. I have some tips I can give and lots of enrichment ideas and things we can work out on how to best live with our cats with their claws. But first, there are some things to kind of consider about declawing. It is a surgical procedure that removes the cat's claws, which means for practical purposes, declawing involves the amputation of the last bone of each toe. And so that could mean all of those toes amputated on the front paws. And if you decide to go with an all four declaw, then you're amputating the toes on all four paws, which is a pretty big undertaking. And we know that cats walk on their toes. So they can face any number of long term complications, most importantly, including persistent pain, postoperative pain. They can experience back pain. They can experience phantom pain, which we see in all kinds of humans and animals that have had amputations, which is a neurologic, needs to be solved with meds that can handle that neurologic pain. We see limping, infection, which can lead to a different sort of pain, long term pain. It can lead to arthritis. Some of that we start to see behavior problems like overgrooming. There are lots of behavior problems which we will talk about. Toe pad calluses, which are another kind of painful outcome. Bone fragments, which happen from kind of an imperfect declaw, which leaves bone fragments actually in the remainder of the phalanx. They've got little bits of bone kind of wandering around in those toes. Yet another symptom of pain. We can see claw regrowth under the skin for an improperly done declaw, and tendon contracture, which means those tendons are completely out all the time. And there's really no way to gauge what that feels like, but it is another side effect that can happen from a declaw kind of gone poorly. What we know is that 1 in 5 cats experience physiological problems post surgery. So, those are all of those kind of pain related symptoms that we talked about. And studies have shown that 1 in 3 cats experience behavioral problems post surgery. And if you speak with anyone who works in an animal shelter, will tell you anecdotally that we see a wide range of behavior problems stemming from a cat that's been declawed, and shelters that are doing things like radiographs on declawed cats. We often find bone fragments in there, and we have to go in and revise that declaw so that we can remove those bone fragments to remove some of the pain that the cat's been experiencing. So um, you'll find a lot of anecdotal stories. More and more, the studies are starting to support these facts that we have seen, the physiological problems and the behavioral problems, as kind of the vet community grasps that decline can be, um, an unkind thing to do. It's an inhumane thing to do to a cat. Recently, there's been some legislation happening regarding declawing. New York became the first state in the nation to pass a ban on elective cat declaw surgery, and that was in 2019. We've seen Los Angeles, San Francisco, Denver, and St. Louis passing similar laws in the recent years. It's not new that other countries have banned declawing. England and Germany, Spain, Australia, New Zealand, they've long banned the practice. It's not new for them. More recently, for states like Michigan, um, bills have been introduced and kind of fallen off the docket, but some states have managed to get bills introduced and passed or considered. So some of those states are New Jersey, Massachusetts, and Connecticut. We hope to see similar bills introduced this year or next in Nevada, California, Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Illinois, among other states. So, what is the status of declining legislation in Michigan? In February 2020, House Bill 5508 to ban declawing in Michigan was introduced, but it died in committee when the session ended in December. So, at this moment, it's unclear if the bill will be reintroduced this year, but Michigan lawmakers have been working to get the bill passed. So, how can you help? You can help by contacting your Michigan legislatures to show your support of this bill. Let them know that there is support in the state of Michigan to ban declawing. So, what is the history? This fact comes also from the Humane Society of the United States website. Declawing started without any scientific study or assessment of pain. or any understanding of the long-term impacts of multiple amputations. When domestic cats began moving into our homes shortly after the invention of kitty litter, a crude procedure involving the use of guillotine clippers to amputate cats' toes was described in a letter from a Chicago practitioner to an American veterinary journal in 1952 as a solution to the damage cats' claws can cause to furniture. Sadly, the practice became normalized in veterinary medicine. We've continued to do this without really doing a ton of research into what the ramifications are of decline. And we do it, uh, you know, we say that we do it to keep cats in people's homes, to keep people from surrendering cats, and all these kind of arguments that we have. But we know the research is supporting that the amputation of their toes is leading to a number of problems. So we're learning more. When we started doing this in 1952, it made sense, I suppose, at the time. But now we know there are alternatives to decline. So, what are the methods used for decline? What method might your vet use to declaw your cat? One of the most common is amputating with a scalpel or guillotine trimmer, which are basically the same as the nail trimmers you use for your dog. They've got the guillotine that comes up and trims the nail off. It's very similar to that. Um, and at that point, the declaw is done, the wounds are closed, the paws are bandaged. Sometimes your vet will send you home with pain meds, and sometimes they won't. Sometimes they'll keep them overnight, sometimes they won't. It just depends on the procedure that your vet follows. There's also a laser surgery, which involves the same amputation of the bone, instead, using a laser scalpel instead of the physical scalpel or trimmer. It's believed to be a quicker recovery, but that's up for debate, I suppose, for folks who kind of oppose decline. And then there's the tendinectomy. The tendon that controls the claw in each toe is severed. So they keep their claws. This is actually associated with a high incidence of thick claw growth. So the claws keep growing, and the consistency of them changes to the point where they're actually a thicker claw, but a cat can't put them out or bring them back in. They're permanently there without any way to control them. So, the American Veterinary Medical Association found the incidence of bleeding, lameness, and infection was similar between tendinectomy and decline. Each vet kind of does, what they're most familiar with, what they feel they stand behind, but each one has the same outcome. The cat either doesn't have control of their claws, or they just have had their claws amputated. So, what are the physical changes with decline? And this image and the following image were both provided by the American Association of Feline Practitioners, who have a ton of really interesting research on their website. This kind of crude image shows exactly where that incision is made, taking out the P3, the last bone of the phalanx, the toe itself that the claw grows from. We see the tendons that control it. We see the bone that's right behind it, the middle phalanx, and then the tendon of the deep digital flexor, which is right behind it. All these things kind of control the claw contracting and all those kinds of things that the cat can do with the claw. So those are all still there, but the P3, the third bone, is actually removed. So here we see what happens after decline. The normal toe there on the left, we see the normal toe with the claw extended, which can kind of indicate how the cat walks. Once that claw is removed, the middle phalanx becomes directly weight bearing. So we now have a bone that wasn't intended to be weight bearing, bearing the weight of the cat, assisting in their mobility, which is not the natural state of your cat's paw. And over time, we see the tendons contract and can create this unnatural angle. A cat who is a toe walker is now walking on the edge of a bone that was never intended to be walked on. And that's where some of the pain that we see comes from. A lot of the mobility issues as well. We see a change in how a cat walks over time because of what the declaw does to their physical toes. So this one's kind of long, but I am a huge fan of the American Association of Feline Practitioners. Their website is just so full of amazing information. So this is their position statement on decline. The American Association of Feline Practitioners strongly opposes decline as an elective procedure. It is the obligation of veterinarians to provide cat owners with alternatives to decline. If owners are considering decline, they must be provided with complete education about feline decline. The following points are the foundation of this position statement. Feline declawing is an ethically controversial procedure. Declawing is not a medically necessary procedure for cats in most instances. Scratching is a normal feline behavior, both inherited and learned. Cat owners should be educated on feline scratching behaviors. Veterinarians should provide behavioral recommendations that allow cats to express these behaviors and reduce those undesirable to the client. Declawing is an amputation of the third phalanx. It is the veterinarian's obligation to educate cat owners and provide them with alternatives to declawing. In the sheltering world, we spend a lot of time talking to people about declawing, and the hope is that our veterinarian, the veterinarian uh, groups will come together and help us in this discussion. And the AAFP very much is kind of on board with having this conversation. So, from International Cat Care, which is also an amazing website, it's an amazing group. They have a fantastic website full of really helpful information for folks that are interested in that. Lots of research based information. They're one of my favorites. So, their position statement stands as research published in the Journal of Feline Medicine and Surgery concludes that declawing increases the risk of long term or persistent pain, manifesting as unwanted behaviors such as inappropriate elimination, soiling, urinating outside of the litter box, and aggression and biting. This is not only detrimental to the cat, pain is a major welfare issue, and these behaviors are common reasons for relinquishment of cats to rehoming organizations, but also has health implications for their human companions, as cat bites can be serious, which we know. They have long been on the side of a declaw ban, so they have a lot of very useful information for folks that want to look into that. And the Michigan Pet Alliance's position statement, Michigan Pet Alliance is opposed to the elective declawing of cats. Declawing a cat is not a trivial procedure similar to trimming fingernails, but an amputation of the third bone in each toe. The procedure can lead to physical, emotional, and behavioral complications, including inappropriate urination, biting, chronic back pain, and overgrooming. Scratching is natural behavior for cats, and cats' claws are a vital part of her anatomy, essential to balance, mobility, and survival. Problem scratching is best addressed through the use of behavioral modification. And that's the bottom line where we need to start behavior modification, um, increasing enrichment, increasing the time we're spending with our cats, kind of determining if there are enough resources for multi cat homes. These are all things that we'll talk about tonight, but it really is doable. We just need folks to have the resources. So, what are some of the physical complications resulting from decline? We see pain, and it manifests in so many different ways. We know that with cats, pain and behavior problems often go hand in hand, and they're often hard to diagnose because cats are very stoic. When we have a declawed cat, the first place we should go is to do some radiographs and see what's going on in those paws, see if there's bone fragments, see what the remaining bones look like. There's so many things that come from the pain associated with decline that's kind of the umbrella of everything is this pain that it's causing these cats. But we see things like tissue necrosis, infection, lameness, joint pain, back pain, the bone fragments that I talked about, improper regrowth, nerve damage, and that's just to name a few. In the time that we've been doing radiographs on paws, we've seen lots of regrowth happening, which is complicated because we need to repair it. Your vet is going to have to go in and look at those paws and see what needs to be, what can we revise, what can we fix. Does this cat need to be on pain meds for the rest of its life? What do we need to do? These kind of physical issues are directly related to the behavior issues we then see. So, what are the emotional complications resulting from decline? There are many. Again, a lot of this is anecdotal. The research is relatively new, kind of supporting these things. It's mostly what we see, kind of working in the animal welfare world, working in the veterinary field. So we're waiting for the research to kind of catch up with what we've been seeing for years. But what we see, pain associated litter box avoidance, so many different ways that this manifests. Often we see cats eliminating on soft surfaces because their paws hurt in the litter box. A cat is declawed, they try and use the litter box, and that litter hurts their paws. So, of course, they're not going to continue using the litter box appropriately. They're going to find somewhere that feels more comfortable. We see lots of kind of tub elimination, eliminating in tubs on soft, cool surfaces because that feels good. We see them eliminating pretty much everywhere but their litter box. And there are lots of ways to kind of work a cat back up to using a litter box once we've started seeing that, but we can't undo the declaw. So if we can start without having them declawed, that would be wonderful. We see a lot of pain associated biting. We see pain causing biting in cats. We know that declawing causes a great deal of pain. I can say when we have a cat surrendered to the shelter who is declawed, who does have an aggression problem, the first place we go is radiographs to make sure that that aggression is not being caused by something that we can fix physiologically. When you're in pain, you're grumpy. Cats are as well. We know that we're removing a natural defense, and that causes a lot of problems. But the thing about cats and dogs is that they learn an inhibited bite. They learn that from their mom, from their litter mates. And when we remove a natural defense, that bite then becomes uninhibited. They feel that they have to go on the defense, they don't have a choice. So, what was once a normal, natural progression of a behavior is then exacerbated by this pain that they're in, and they know that they have lost this natural defense. So now we're biting without inhibition, which is a dangerous situation to be in. There are lots of anxiety and anxiety related behaviors, the biggest of which is overgrooming. Overgrooming is probably the biggest as far as the anxiety related behaviors, but we can see cats obsessively licking their paws. That happens a lot. These grooming instincts are a big indication of anxiety in cats, and decline is a major factor for that.